Officially Denied podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Toby.
Alright, so I think as we speak, Hawaii is confirmed not to be under nuclear attack.
I hope so. I hope that's the case.
So I mean, it kind of seems a bit crazy because if you think about it, you genuinely have a state which, recently has been kind of in the news for being rather close to North Korea's expanding nuclear arsenal. And
yeah.
So they get waken up by a text.
Saying, full caps, ballistic missile threat inbound to Hawaii, seek immediate shelter, this is not a drill. Not only is the message scary, but keep in mind this is an emergency alert, so it goes through every single phone, regardless if you're on silence or not, and buzzes out at full volume. So everybody dropped what they were doing and looked at their phones.
And I think from what we can gather here, it's the correction text that was sent out later came about 40 minutes later. So there was about 40 minutes when everyone in Hawaii thought that there might very well be a nuclear strike.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, a nuclear strike would take about half an hour at maximum.
I mean, I don't know how those alerts work. Like, do they do it when they detect a missile launch heading towards the island? Where would that missile be at the time? Like, I'm not sure how the logistics of that work. I mean, it's not exactly a tsunami warning.
No, but there's definitely someone who typed that out and wrote it out, or they at least had, I imagine, a preset menu of texts and alerts they could send out. But that was probably human.
If you were to get a text now from, I mean, I don't know, I mean, I'm pretty sure we must have a similar system in place here.
Yeah, MOD would probably have something, Ministry of Defense.
Yeah, so you got an MOD text saying that there is maybe not a missile strike, but there is an impending, I don't know, chemical attack or something on Manchester. What do you do?
Let me just think. I mean,
do you go on Twitter and check if it's a hoax? Do you, I don't know, start packing your things and run to the nearest basement or something?
Yeah, first thing I do would probably be check Twitter. But keep in mind, most people I speak to, when I ask them, hey, have you seen this on Twitter? Or where do you go to check your news on social media? Most people would probably go on something like Snapchat or Instagram. So it would just be a scramble for where we can find some
I think
legitimate news source.
I think it's definitely. I mean, I guess you might turn on the TV and actually see if this thing is real, because presumably, if this was serious, the alert system wouldn't just be reduced to sending out emergency texts.
TV networks as well. I was just on Twitter half an hour ago seeing what was going on in Hawaii, and some of the responses were saying that some American news networks were reporting it as legitimate because they were going off the tweet and no official statement.
You mean the text message?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, the message, yeah. Well, what news source do you run to first?
Well, I mean, my point is, like, with social media, at least, you have a much faster avenue for corrections. If something like this happened before the internet, I assume everyone would kind of just immediately freak out, and I mean, not that didn't happen anyway.
Well, I mean, best example of this would be War of the Worlds.
Right.
War of the Worlds was originally
1890s.
1890s, and when it was on the radio, it was kind of like what's the name of the show on BBC 4, Radio 4? Sorry, The Archers, which is complete with sound effects and a minimal musical score, seems like a real family in a real neighborhood. A War of the Worlds had people freaking out because they thought there was an alien invasion going to happen, and people in the Midwest of the United States actually went out into the streets with guns, preparing to see aliens, and actually shot each other in the panic.
Yeah, and clearly, because the less sources you have for information and for news, the harder it is to clarify something like that. What was the last time that something like this actually happened with kind of a nuclear hoax? I mean, didn't I think sometime during Reagan's second term. I might be very well
The
wrong.
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh well, I mean that was real.
Yeah, that was real, but the panic that people had, how much information can you get to the people? And how can you be sure that they're listening to it all?
There was some kind of radio station, I think it was a radio thing in the 80s when I think Reagan or someone they were doing a sound check, and they didn't realize they were live. So he said something on the lines of, the evils of the Soviet Empire can no longer be allowed to stand, and this is the crucial bit: the bombing will begin in 20 minutes.
And people freaked out and took it seriously.
My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
No, there's definitely a lot of infrastructural, communication infrastructure reworking coming up right now in the US, because this is a major, major fuck up.
Oh yeah. Okay, so 2017. Slow news year.
Yeah, pretty slow, pretty chilled out. Not much to worry about.
So, but I'm sure 2018 will be lots more exciting. Do you have any projections that you think might come true? I mean, obviously the big ones being with regards to Brexit. Will Theresa May secure a deal? Will there be another general election? Will Trump get impeached? What do you think?
Well, I'll start off with the last one you said, Trump's impeachment. Hypothetically, of course. I mean, if we go way back to, I say way back because it feels like years ago, when, as we all remember, the famous quote, grab him by the pussy.
Oh yeah.
We all thought that
Bush
would get this dude elected, and it did. And then while first few weeks in presidency, there were all the different people coming out, mainly women coming out saying that they'd been sexually assaulted by the Don. And we all thought that would lead to impeachment, but
well, I mean,
as it moves on,
I think that's
sorry, go on.
I mean, the difference here being that I mean the Billy Bush stuff, the Billy Bush tapes, that was during the election campaign.
Yeah,
I mean, the coalition you would need to prevent Trump from being president there would be, well, it would be for him to lose the vote. The thing I think about 2018 is that people should not get too excited about these things, and partly because I think this year is going to be just a giant long slog where very little things will happen with regards to kind of the things we mentioned here, at least until the very end if the Democrats actually manage to get control of both houses. Because so there's this kind of myth that's been going around since before Donald Trump's election, when he was still running, that Donald Trump has this kind of mystical group of supporters who don't fall into the usual Republican umbrella, which is not the case at all. The thing about Republican voters and Trump voters is that Trump voters are Republican voters and Republican voters are Trump voters, which is why his current approval rating is about the same as the generic ballot poll for the House elections.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and of course the real approval rating for Trump that really is the most important with regards to potential impeachment is not his approval ratings among the general public, which is hovering around 38, 39 right now, high 30s.
Yeah.
The real approval rating that actually matters is 80%, which is what it's been for the last year among Republican voters.
Exactly.
I mean, as long as you have a Republican-controlled House, I very much don't see a way that he will be removed just because if you're a Republican congressman And unless you're like some crazy maverick that prides himself on being anti-Trump, and there's very, very few of them, you will, if you are instrumental in bringing down Donald Trump, then you will lose your next primary.
But I honestly believe, I know people keep saying it, and at the beginning it was kind of, people were being blamed for whinging about it, but I do believe that there is a level of mental health issue at play. The fact that you have many psychiatrists making long-distance analysis, which, to be fair, isn't very
I mean, it's not
fair.
scientific, really. But...
It's not scientific, but they do actually want to conduct scientific tests to see whether he is mentally fit.
Well, I mean, clearly that won't happen, and not necessarily because Donald Trump knows he has some serious mental disorder and he doesn't want the public to know about it. I mean, just the very picture of a president having a psychiatric evaluation in front of everyone is just a giant PR disaster waiting to happen.
True, but they must get background or under the radar checks by some internal assessment team.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that actually works. I mean, with regards to his mental health, I mean, if he is going to be removed because of that, it would not happen through impeachment. It would happen through the 25th Amendment, which is where a president gets removed by a majority or 2/3 vote through the cabinet. Like, okay, the 25th Amendment, it's the thing it's actually meant for when it was written decades ago, was in an event where the president is still alive, but incapacitated to the point where he cannot no longer resume his duties. So if he falls into a coma or has a heart attack, or if he just goes completely insane and starts, running naked around the White House lawn. I mean, that is the kind of scenario where a 25th Amendment would be invoked,
yeah.
And everyone would agree that is what should happen.
Thinking ahead, thinking 2020, what are your thoughts on Oprah 2020?
Right, well, here's the thing. I did watch her speech for the Academy Awards. I don't usually watch the Academy Awards, but obviously everyone was talking about it, so I watched the speech. And, you know what, I don't know if she will be a good president. She probably won't be. I mean, I certainly can't see her ordering a drone strike, although that may be a good thing.
Maybe.
Yeah. But I think she will be fantastic at running for president.
Yeah, that's what I had a conversation with one of my course mates today, who we were talking about this. For you listeners out there, Peter and I are both politics and international relations students / international politics, whatever name you'd like to give it. And we were talking about this, and he said what you've just said, that he's not sure about her being fit for presidency. However, she is the perfect opponent to any Republican candidate that may arise in the next couple of years.
And why might that be?
Well, it comes back to what many people were saying about Trump when they voted for him, and it was the dreadful sentence of, he's not a career politician.
Right. Yeah.
The American presidency race to the White House, however you'd like to call it, is now a PR war. It's no longer about who can think not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for this country. It's now about making it, as we saw with the last electoral campaign, a giant reality show.
Yeah. You're right.
It seems obscene that we live in this era, but it is what it is. So Trump is fantastic at PR, at selling himself in marketing.
With a very specific group of people.
With a specific group of people, but a group of people that matter and a group of people that got him to where he is. That is undeniable. So Oprah would have a very strong liberal public backing her up.
Yeah, I mean it's quite. I think it's really premature to gauge, and I mean for starters, I don't think she will run.
No, I don't think so either.
But there was a poll that was done recently about prospective Democratic primary candidates, and Oprah actually came third, behind Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders.
Interesting.
Again, like, it's too early to say. Bernie Sanders probably won't run either, and neither will Joe Biden.
Oh, wait.
So, like, there are others which the poll didn't include, like Cory Booker, who I think will almost certainly run and hopefully lose. I mean, the thing that struck me watching that speech was that Oprah has something. She had something there that Hillary Clinton didn't have and really struggled to obtain throughout the campaign, which is that, like, throughout that speech, which is what, like 9-10 minutes. I mean, she told a story, right? And she had this narrative going. She started with with her as a little girl and her mom, and they were watching the Academy Awards, and now that she's here, and there was a very coherent narrative, and you feel like if she was going to run for president, she would actually be able to tell a story about why she wants to be president.
Yeah.
Which is something that Hillary Clinton could never do. And I mean, I remember I was reading last year. I was reading Shattered, which is a book about her campaign. And one of the striking things from it is at the start when she was just about to officially announce her candidacy. Obviously, everyone knew she was running, but when she was about to give her first few speeches of the Democratic primary, like, she really struggled to find a compelling reason about why she wanted to be president. Obviously beyond, hi, I'm Hillary Clinton, and I would just really like to be president because it's really my turn now.
Yeah.
So in the end, she made up this whole thing of where, and they ran all these ads with her about her mom, and she's like, well, when I look at my mom, this inspires me to break the glass ceiling, and no one fucking bought it.
No. See, this goes back to the whole PR battle that is the elections in the US. Something that Hillary lacked. So something that Oprah has is a lot of charisma.
And you think that's something that Hillary didn't?
Well, can you picture Hillary Clinton running a talk show?
No.
Running a talk show loved by the whole country, running a talk show that people would wake up and switch on.
I mean, I can't, but not really because of Hillary's charisma, but because she's Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, exactly. It's just...
I mean, it doesn't really speak to her charisma, it just speaks to the point. I can't picture her in that kind of non-political setting.
Exactly, but the thing is, Oprah is a fantastic... I mean, it also comes similar to Trump, a fantastic businesswoman.
I mean, unlike Trump, she is actually a self-made billionaire.
She is actually a self-made billionaire, and if there's any embodiment of the American dream, it's not only a woman, but a black woman making it to the top, like Oprah, is a symbol of hope and something that everyone can look up to, no matter who you are.
But again, I think a lot of this is kind of hypothetical, because I honestly don't think
totally
I do not think she's actually going to run.
No, but we could think of other people who have said they're going to run / there are rumors of them running.
Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne Johnson. I absolutely love Dwayne Johnson. I think
But
he's
would
a
you want him to
fantastic
be the leader
guy.
of the free world?
But yeah, exactly. That's my point. I love Dwayne Johnson. He is a star, not an actor. I like to believe. When he's on screen, he's racking in the bucks. He has also come from a tough background. He's made it a long way. He's a very inspirational person. He's incredibly charismatic. Everybody loves him. Blah blah blah. But is he a politician?
Well, I mean, I think the wider question here is, I mean, should celebrities run for president? I mean, my honest opinion is that after Donald Trump, whether that is 2020 or 2024, I think the best thing for America would be a very dedicated guy or gal who has who has a great deal of experience in the political sphere, because that would be kind of the perfect antidote to Trump. I don't think the antidote to Trump is to have a left-wing Trump.
No, totally not. It's like people saying, to give another example, Yeezy 2020. Kanye 2020. I love Kanye's music. I understand that he is a genius when it comes to music and marketing, and he's very successful fashion designer and all you want. But he would not be who we'd want on the other side as an opponent to Trump.
Again,
He
you
is-
wouldn't want to give Kanye West the nuclear button.
No, I wouldn't want to give Kanye the nuclear button at all. No.
I mean, my main contention with celebrity politicians, or I mean celebrities running for president, is if Oprah Winfrey becomes president, she would be a very weak president. Just like Trump is a very weak president. You know, like beyond all the bluster and all the vulgarity and all, the shouting about foreigners from shitty countries, this is not someone who is really in there writing policy. He's not really making decisions about the country. Trump's whole thing is that he captivates his core base with a few very emotional issues. So, immigration, national security, let's build the wall, let's do this, let's do the travel ban. But yeah, it's populism that is, as far as that is meaningless in many ways. It's like the blue passport, right? It feels nice, but it's meaningless. It's meaningless bullshit.
It is.
My point is, like, with the kind of issues, with the kind of policies that actually make a difference, that actually really matter at American politics, which would be, I don't know, tax policy, healthcare, to name a few recent examples, right? I mean, this is not something that Donald Trump, at least, has been involved in at all. I mean, his whole thing is, hey, well, give me a bill and I'll sign it. I mean, that's basically what he says. As a result, he's free to go, roaming around his golf courses, making his media appearances, going to his rallies, while the Republican establishment is actually who's running the country.
Exactly. He's the face of the show, but the whole gears behind it all are, as you said, the Republican House.
Yeah, I mean, relating it back to someone like Oprah, I have no doubt that if she wins, it would be similar to Trump. It's just it won't be the Republican political establishment running America. It would be the center-right Democratic establishment.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're someone who genuinely cares about, I don't know, progressive issues, so I don't know, gun control, healthcare. If you're radically in favor of single-payer healthcare in America, I don't think Oprah is someone you really want.
Of entertainment and reality being intertwined, we've both been watching Black Mirror lately.
Yes.
And what are your thoughts on it, Peter? What have you taken away from it?
So you have seen all of season 4, right?
I have seen almost all of season 4.
So what haven't you seen?
I've not seen the final 2 episodes.
Okay, that's good because all right. Well, I'm a huge fan of Black Mirror. I think it's probably the best thing on Netflix. Maybe Narcos, but anyway, I think. But season 4, I think, was the weakest by far out of all of them.
Yeah, season 3 was very strong, and season 4 is kind of riding the hype train. It's good. Don't get me wrong, it's good, but it is definitely pretty weak in comparison.
I mean, the problem is, if you look at season 1 was released a few years ago, season 2 was released, I think, a year or two after it, and then you had season 3, and the gap between season 3 and season 4 was much shorter than the previous 3. So,
well, yeah.
and it really does show. I mean,
it does show.
I mean, some of the writing feels like it's been rushed. They're reusing a lot of kind of the tech now, like the whole like cookie thing. We have we can extract a sentient kind of digital version of yourself. That's something that was introduced in season 2 with White Christmas, and I mean in season 4 we've had that tech being used in USS Callister, in Black Museum, which is the final one, which you said you haven't seen.
Yeah. But it's also the other tech that I was thinking this is exactly the same as an old episode was in the episode in Archangel. When the mother starts flicking through her daughter's memories, on the tablet. It's basically a remote version of the tech present in the episode, if I'm not mistaken, season 2, The Entire History of You.
Either
Where the
season
guy has a
2 or
little-
season 1, yeah. But I know, I
Yeah,
know,
where he has the tech in his neck.
yeah, I know which one you're referring to. I think it's a bit different because I mean, well, I guess the tech is somewhat similar. I mean, but it's approached from a totally different kind of point of view.
It is, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
one is about us being obsessed with kind of just looking through past
Living in the
memories
past.
and being super analytical over everything. The other Archangel is just about helicopter parenting.
Yeah, it is. Extreme helicopter parenting. Yeah.
But what did you think of USS Callister?
Ooh, well, I'm not going to go into filmmaking opinions on it. I'm going to go more into kind of philosophical opinions of it. It really is just an extension. So picture this. It could almost be like a Seinfeld episode where one of the gang has a punching bag with his boss's face on it in his house, and they find out, and the episode rolls on from there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that's been going on for ages. I'm not saying it's an acceptable thing to take out your anger on people you dislike with virtual/artificial versions of them.
I mean, it's better than the real thing.
Of course, yeah, definitely. But people do vent their anger. They do manipulate the viewer with the whole, but what if they had consciousness? What if they were self-aware of their existence within your cruel
So I mean,
virtual world?
let me ask you this, right? Daly was the main name of the main character.
I think it might
I
be.
think it was Daly, right? So did Daly do anything wrong? Like, did he do anything really wrong? And did he do something so wrong to warrant his initial fate? I mean, to warrant his eventual fate, which is to be trapped in a video game and then I assume die of dehydration.
Definitely not.
Okay, right. Because, I mean, after the episode, I mean, I went on the Black Mirror subreddit and I read a lot of kind of discussion there. I talked about it with some friends of mine. I talked about it with my sister who was also watching it. And, like, I think, like, the universal, or at least the most common interpretation was like, oh my god, what an asshole. He deserved what he got, you know? He was torturing these people inside that video game. And,
No.
I mean, my reaction was, okay, right. You know, what he was doing was certainly... Okay, like, what he did wrong was he was stealing DNA from his coworkers
Yeah.
and then uploading it to this cloud game and then going in there and torturing them. And anyway,
Yeah.
what he did was certainly creepy. Like,
was
again,
creepy, but-
as you mentioned, it's like having a punching bag with your boss's face on it.
Yeah, what it did warrant if we're being real, what should have happened, dude gets fired and gets put in and gets some psychological help,
I mean,
whether it's a
I
psychiatrist
mean,
or
would you
some
even
other
would you
treatment.
even fire someone over that? I mean, okay, he stole he took some hair out of it. I mean, okay, like it's freaking creepy, but I don't
It
know.
is creepy, but keep in mind, if we're thinking, if you're running that company that he's in, would you fire your head engineer over it?
I don't know. Is this kind of a moral quandary over like, well, our company might go down, but at least we'll look. I mean, the problem I have with that whole theme that's been very prevalent in Black Mirror recently, which is, you know, we have with these cookies, with being able to extract kind of a digital version of ourselves that is apparently sentient, is like, I'm still confused. Are they actually sentient or are they not? Because
They could be pre-programmed to act like they are self-aware when they're not.
Because here's the problem. Those that say that he actually deserved what he got imply that he was legit conducting torture inside that video game to these sentient beings. But, well, they're not. They're bots. Like, they can't experience emotion, right? I mean, they're just long lines of computer code. Like, I mean, like,
They are. They don't. I mean, they don't even have genitals.
oh, I mean, I know, right? Also, by the way, whoever wrote the line,
Eating my pussy. That's the fucking line.
yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, the problem is, I mean, the way I've had it explained to me is that like they can't actually experience emotion. They can't experience happiness or sadness or pain. They can only give the impression that they are experiencing that emotion. Just like you can probably download like a little app with a sad cat on your phone that is, I don't know. Like that doesn't mean there is actually a depressed cat trapped in your smartphone. That just means that it's programmed to exhibit emotion. I have a lot of other problems with that episode, just with how
It's
silly
just very
it is.
open-ended, and
Well, it's not.
the idea is fantastic, but an hour, what is it, an hour and 10 minutes is the runtime, was just not enough to answer all the questions.
I don't know about that. I mean, again, like aside from that whole moral quandary, which I still don't understand. My biggest issue was with just all the plot holes in it. So they're stuck in his own personal save of this game, but it's going to be wiped because of the new update. And the update appears as a wormhole within the game. Why?
That is
why
very big Deus Ex Machina. Good. Yeah.
Why does that happen? Like, someone would legit have to program that in. Why would you program that in? Also,
Exactly, we're talking about code here.
Also, yeah, exactly. Like, why would you allow your game to be hacked from the inside? They are able to access the source code from inside this video game. Like, this is not something that you can just, like, forget and leave out and it's in your game. No, this is something that you have to specifically make a feature.
Exactly. The only time where I would have said I would have allowed all the plot holes would be if at some point he mentions, oh, by the way, I've sped up my process by inserting a machine learning algorithm into the game where it will kind of build itself.
Yeah, but I mean
and then this machine learning then becomes sentient, blah blah blah.
Yeah, but that's never even mentioned.
No, so
I mean, obviously the other big one is how the heck do you make a video game, like a VR video game, but like one step above VR because it's literally just like happening in your brain. Like how do you do that and not make a failsafe where if the safe becomes corrupted or is deleted like it is, you don't have a way to escape it?
Yeah. Is there no like panic button?
Like,
I don't know.
Like it is basically implied at the end that the guy is going to die. On the subject of movies, favorite films 2017?
Favorite films of 2017. It's good that you asked that. I do write for the film section of my university newspaper, and we did
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. But we did do a top 10, and the two standout films. I won't give them an order. But the films I really enjoyed from last year were three films. I'll say is Dunkirk.
Okay.
Was fantastic. I had the luxury of being able to watch it 70 millimeters in a room that had been calibrated by Nolan himself, so the audio was way too loud. I left with a pounding headache.
Wow.
But I have gone over the film various times over a pint with my dad. He saw it a couple of days after I did, and he was raving about the timelines, how they all converge at the end, and how
it's a Christopher Nolan movie, so he had to put that in, right?
Yeah, that's the one thing that does join all the Nolan films up, is the concept of time and how it's limited. So Dunkirk I thought was great. I also really enjoyed it.
I have not seen that.
You've not seen it?
Nope.
I was lucky to attend one of the premieres, and it was... I thought it's just what the horror genre needs. I'm a big horror fan, but people say, but how can you watch horror? Films like Saw and Final Destination suck, and I agree. Because that, to me, is not horror, that's just gore porn. But it...
I mean, Final Destination is not scary.
No, Final Destination is not scary. But it did actually give me nightmares. I hadn't had nightmares in years, and it did actually give me nightmares for a few nights. It was pretty intense.
After watching the movie, wow.
Yeah, it was intense. But I just thought it was a wonderful step for the horror genre. It tells a charming story of companionship. It does tickle the 80s nostalgia bone that everybody seems to have right now. But it also has very good horror sequences with the tension being built up. There's a couple scenes in the middle of the film. I won't say what happens in them because you haven't seen them, but if anybody listening has seen it, they'll definitely know what I'm talking about. There's about 4 scenes in a row that are extremely intense. And I remember turning to my brother about, it was maybe, the 3rd scene of these 4 or 5 scenes, and I just looked at my brother and I just looked at him and said, when will this fucking stop? It was very intense. And number 3 was Blade Runner 2049. I only got around to watching the original the week before I went to see the film, and I liked it, but didn't really understand the whole hype behind it. When I got to 2049, I saw it in IMAX, and it was hypnotic. It's 3 hours long, almost 3 hours long. So my one thought by the last half hour was, man, I really need to pee. But visually, it's one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen. The fact that it just rotates through these bright color palettes that contrast the bleak landscape of Los Angeles is just beautiful. The soundtrack harkens back to the original by Vangelis. This time around, it is made... I actually have it right here. I'm going to pick it up. I did buy it in vinyl this week. It's made by Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfisch. So, as a big Zimmer fan, it was definitely noticeable that it was a Zimmer score. And then when it comes to the story, the writing was clever, the editing was efficient, would be the best way to put it. There were no unnecessary cuts. Let me just remind everybody of Taken 3 and the 17 cuts.
Oh, please don't remind me of Taken 3. that is an experience that is better left alone in the dustbins of history. All right, well, I mean, I guess since you mentioned 3, I guess I'll just do the same.
Yes, of course.
Well, I definitely do have to concur on Dunkirk. I wouldn't say it's my favorite film of the year, no. But it is definitely the best directed film I have seen in a very long time. But
yeah, I have to agree on that.
I mean, on top of that, I will be doing myself a giant misservice if I didn't mention Amanda Iannucci's The Death of Stalin, which you have seen?
I have seen indeed, yes.
Well, I mean, I'm a big Amanda Iannucci fan. So for that was, and for him to make a movie about the Soviet Union was, quite. It was a very Amanda Iannucci.
It was a break.
Well, I mean, it
was very him.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because this is someone whose previous contributions have been a long-running sitcom about the workings of British government departments, and he also did a standalone film based on that about the run-up to the Iraq War. So this was an interesting break, but I think it's definitely the funniest film I've seen all year. And it's definitely the only film I can remember that made me laugh at someone getting shot in the face. So
yeah.
It's comedy, and it's very dark comedy, but on top of that, I think it does a pretty brilliant depiction of just this kind of power vacuum that is left behind after this authoritarian strongman dies, and they're all scrambling to get their grips on the positions of power. I mean, I'm not sure exactly how accurate it is. I assume not.
No, I'm sure it's very, very loosely based on reality.
I assume it's not. Stalin's son, who plays a pretty prominent role in the film, obviously was not alive back then. He died during the war. So I mean that alone, and Beria's overthrow actually happened a fairly significant period of time after Stalin's death, and not in the film, where it basically depicts it as happening within a few days. But the Death of Stalin was definitely brilliant. But I think my overall favorite film of the year, and it is something I did not expect it to be, which is War for the Planet of the Apes. And it was interesting because so I saw the film and I loved it, and then I read reviews for it on IMDb, and everyone fucking hated it.
Really?
because the trailers made it out to be this high action spectacle.
Yeah, final war for the
Exactly. I
world.
mean, it's called War for the Planet of the Apes, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately for them, I mean, there's not that much warring that goes on in the movie. What I didn't expect again was that it was going to be a rather long new interpretation of John Conrad's Heart of Darkness,
Oh,
which was definitely a pleasant surprise, but it definitely gave the movie a very kind of distinct tone. I mean, without spoiling anything too much, I mean, the whole premise is that Caesar, played by Andy Serkis, ends up after a horrific family tragedy. He ends up going on a long journey up north to find this colonel who was running a makeshift who was running this makeshift camp where he enslaves apes. I mean, if you've seen Apocalypse Now, you know how the story goes.
that's interesting. Yeah, I just looked up Matt Reeves to remind myself what he's made previously, and he has worked on Cloverfield and Let Me In, which are both fantastic stories, emotionally and horror-wise. So it makes sense that his emotional side to the story of Planet of the Apes is that good.
Okay, well, should we wrap it up then?
Yeah, I think that's a good pilot episode.
If you don't mind me saying so, yeah. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we will see you next week.